Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Better Learning Podcast. I am Jeff Kubiak, and today with me is the amazing Jen Gibb of Van Pelt. Thank you for being here, my friend.
Thank you for having me.
So, Jennifer Gibb is the Vice President of Business Development at Van Pelt Construction Services. So, she helps navigate California PK to 14 ed institutions turn the vision into reality through strategic planning, funding, and program management. With more than 20 years of experience in educational facilities, Jennifer is passionate about building strong partnerships, creating innovative solutions, and helping communities deliver exceptional learning environments. She's a recognized leader in the ed facilities industry, and she's equally committed to mentoring others, giving back to community, and leading with purpose. Outside of work, Jen is a wife, a proud mom of two, and an advocate for making a lasting difference for students and the communities they serve. Wonderful intro, my friend. Thanks for being with us, Jennifer.
Of course, I'm super excited.
So I'm going to start off with a movie question. So the Better Learning Podcast used to have kind of a series of these fun movie icebreaker things. And so we love talking about movies. And so the movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off or Dead Poet Society, Mean Girls. What's a school facility movie or feature film that you've seen on screen that immediately makes you say, no way, that is so fake, or whoa, that's totally realistic?
Well, one of my favorite movies is not those two. Well, I love Dead Poets Society, and Ferris Bueller's Day Off, duh. But I love The Breakfast Club, and I think it's interesting because back in California during the 80s, that definitely was not the way libraries or media centers operated, and maybe back east or the Midwest it was because everything had to be, indoors. But I think over the years, California has worked to build spaces, communal spaces for the kids that kind of emulate that. So when I was a kid, I was like, oh, that'd be so cool to have a library like that or a media center and you'd be stuck in it all day, whatever. But I think, one of my first projects I got to build was American Canyon High School. Back in 2010, we occupied it, and the library was like that. And I love a space where not only do you have books, but you can have collaboration spaces, and it just really kind of, so I guess in my life, I saw something I wanted and then got to be a part of building it when I got into this industry. So yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. I love that movie. And when I watched it, I always wanted to sit on that railing and have my feet dangle, like they were way up there.
Yeah.
It's just so cool.
I know.
Oh,
It's just it was such a cool space. And I was like, is this reality? Is this real? They have these spaces? And I mean,
totally.
Growing up in Napa, we definitely didn't have a 2-story library. So, but yeah.
That's cool. So you've sat on every side of the table when it comes to schools, education facilities. So as a district employee, when you were managing bonds and a consultant funding projects, and now doing biz dev, what's the biggest misconception that people have about school bond measures actually getting turned into real physical buildings?
That's a good one. I think that as a public agent in schools, in the industry, there's always an opportunity to ask for the money, right? But it's often difficult, especially now in the kind of the political climate, the economic climate, to make the ask become a reality. And so a lot of the hard work that districts are doing is you have to plan for the ask. And then when you don't get the ask, you still keep planning as if you're going to ask. You can't give up. And so I think that's kind of the misconception, is that we have all the money, or money is easily accessible, or, from agency to agency. I think a lot of our local agency partners sometimes think that schools, they have all the money. there's, we definitely we have apportioned monies from the state, right? But it's never enough. And so the planning that's happening and that district leadership is doing and that us as partners can help with is being thoughtful about communicating out to the public, the constituents, your agency partners, other vendors, other districts adjacent. Like, is there ways that we can be collaborative, build knowledge? Like, knowledge is power, right? And so having your community understand where they have an impact in helping build up the next generation is really critical. And it has to always be in your forefront. That's hard for district leaders, right? Like, I've always been on the facility side, but there's district leaders that's not their highest priority facilities, right? I was just at Small School District Association, their annual leadership summit for their superintendents in this past weekend. And it was interesting because a small school district, a leader is doing everything. We were talking about this. It's like they can be the nurse, they can be the bus driver, they can be the superintendent, they can sometimes have to teach in class, right? And so do they need facilities? Absolutely. Is that their highest priority? Usually not. And so helping create just a standard, trying to get out there and make a difference, help the world, your communities understand that facilities really do play an impact. I truly believe that facilities help with creating a long-lasting love for learning, and then that generation, every generation we are able to support with the facilities that we build is like our next leaders, so and workforce. So it's important that we make sure that they're modernized, they're up to date, they are new, all the things. Obviously, I love facilities. Sorry. Facilities and money.
No,
I love both.
that's so interesting. So, having been a principal in Fairfield Sassoon, our amazing superintendent at the time, Chris Corey, almost, I think it was about $1 billion in bonds she got passed, right? And so, but community, so, being an educator, I see one thing. Being a community member, they think, okay, so we have $600 million. Boom. They want instant, like new schools, new this. So maybe share, because some people might not know the intricacies of that bond money to reality of a new American Canyon High, right?
Yeah, I'm a planner by life, but I think you're right. People don't understand. Hey, we voted for the bond. Now get going. So what we actually just did, we're the program managers for Napa. That was my hometown, and I worked there when I was a facilities leader from 2008 to 2020. What we just did there this last year actually kind of leads into that. They passed their bond by 37 votes in 2024 November. And it was like, okay, great. That barely passed, right? They did a ton of pre-work. They put together a plan, a master plan, a roadmap, did all this outreach, got monies lined up just in case they didn't pass the bond, which, I mean, given that margin, it's pretty close, right? And what they did, and we helped facilitate it, was do the design work, the permitting through DSA and CDE, got everything shovel ready. So whether or not the bond passed, we were able to start construction in the June of 2025. And so we did that. We had a successful summer last year. We had 8 ribbon cuttings in August, and it really was great. That money that we used to do all that hard work was local money. It was not general obligation bonds. The design, it was state matched monies that they had received from prior projects. It was developer fees, a multitude of funding to do that, but to show the constituents like, hey, we listened, we barely passed, but we're going to make your dollars go to work. The community doesn't know that they're all, the current measure or past measure. They just need to say, like, what have you done for me lately? And so I would encourage, consultants, leaders in the industry to be thoughtful about that and help kind of that strategy. Because if the bond doesn't pass, it doesn't mean the work still doesn't need to be done, right? And
Right,
so
right.
having those alternative funding sources or strategies, or, you know, for small school districts, there's the small school district set aside that will open in November of this year and then again in January. So, like, being shovel ready, whether or not you have the money, is important. And so being a little strategic, not like relying on one set of funding. And we have some districts that are being thoughtful about, like, hey, does this product or program support extended learning opportunities, right? And so there's set asides for that. Is it, do we have growth in our community? Is there a nutritional impact? Can we use some kit funds for that? How can you commingle all those funds for the betterment of the kids, right? And so a lot of that pre-work of the strategy or the planning, or it's really, you don't want money to drive the project, but sometimes you need money to, obviously you need money to do the project. So I think that as leaders, or working in this industry, we have to be thoughtful that our public leaders have those challenges. And we have access to multiple districts. That's why I love my new role at Van Pelt. I mean, I've been here for several years, but I really love that I get to work with all different types of districts throughout the entire state. And so every community is a little different. Every funding source is different. Projects are different. It's just important that the community understand, like, you are unique, and then there's solutions that maybe others did that we could implement within your district or your community to help you get what you truly need.
Yeah, oh, that's great. You hold, I believe you hold a degree in business finance, right? And then you've also done the CASBO CBO certification. You've done like 8 million things. So often the money people and the building design people speak different languages, right?
Yes.
So you're fluent in both. So how do you bridge that gap so a project isn't financially sound only, but also improves learning outcomes? So you got, how do you pave that way?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think it's something that everybody should keep front of mind, right? Like I was just saying, there's a ton of different funding sources. They're maybe not all where you think they are. You got to lift a few rocks to find those pennies, right? But when you put them all together, you can get the learning outcomes that the leaders of our districts need to meet, right? Unfortunately, there's a lot of bureaucracy, and like you got to check the boxes, and that's the struggle and the balance. And so I often sit with my clients and friends, whoever. You don't have to be a client for me to help you strategize. I just love doing it. And like, what's the goal? Always starting with, like, what do you want for the kids? Where do you want to be? Like, what's the end goal? It doesn't matter how big a goal, how large a dream, how hard you think it's going to be. Tell me what that is. If you could have whatever you wanted for your kids in your community, what is it? And then we'll start down here and we'll work through a path to get you to that goal, and creating different on and off ramps too, because as leaders of agency, you report to a board, right? Elected officials, and they ultimately are the decision makers of your community and of the district. And so giving them opportunities, choices, direction is what I like to provide for my client. And it's interesting because there's always different initiatives or different priorities that boards have, and or members of a board have. And so helping your leaders at the district see those and kind of put them to reality. So I don't know how I do it, Jeff. I think I just try to, and I encourage my team as well to try to just listen. I'm talking a lot right now, but when I'm with a client, and just listen to what their goals are. Sometimes I don't even know like what the end outcome is going to be, but help them realize it through conversation, listening, figuring out where they're at today and where we can take them to tomorrow. And I think being able to work with lots of districts, I'm able to do that. I was just in San Carlos Elementary School District yesterday, and we were working through their last series of Measure H, that was their bond. They passed it in March of 2024. They got rocking and rolling through just strategy. That's all we're doing there is supporting them on strategy. We're able to get 72%, I think, of their bond committed, and they are like physically constructing it right now. So making money move faster
Yeah.
helps you keep the dollar, right? The day you pass that bond, your dollar already starts depreciating. And so how quickly you can move is what makes that dollar be more of a benefit for the kids, right? And so I think also as industry leaders, we should be thoughtful about that. Like don't like make the process arduous. Like just make it fun, simple, try to create progress, help your leaders have the right tools so they can just check the box, right? And by checking that box, they know that they're doing great for their community. So we spent all day, it was just a planning session. It was super fun. It's like beautiful mind on the whiteboard, right? But like kind of mapping out everything of like, how are we going to spend this last $48 million? And it was kind of cool. And they're moving forward.
A couple things jumped out, and I appreciate you saying this because so we, support for the board, stewards of the district, financially and fiscally responsible. And it's interesting because over the last like 20, 30 years, you see a lot of districts have these huge financial issues, right? And that's from pretty much malfeasance or misuse of money, right? And so I love to hear you repeat that, that we work for the school districts and we want to be stewards of their money. But like, what happens when you run into something like that, the money's just going the wrong way?
Yeah. Well, I'm sure it's not a surprise to anyone, but public construction dollars are the number one fraud in the nation, and so there's tons of misuse of public funds as it relates to construction. And so, like you said, it's our fiduciary duty and responsibility to support those districts to make sure that they don't fall into that or that process is followed so that they can be, audit compliant, whether it's the financial component or the performance component, especially when you're working with public funds. And that's all our firm does. That's all I've ever
Yeah.
done in education, really worked with public funding. And so I think one of the challenges we really see is not necessarily like misuse of public funds on the facility side, but the LCFF, so the general fund side. And I'm not saying misuse of the general fund side, but allocations or budgets that aren't meeting minimum reserve requirements, or struggles some districts are having right now, definitely post COVID. And I know it's like, hey, Jen, we're out of COVID. We've been out of it for a long time. There's just like a trickle down effect of some of the decisions that were made during COVID with one-time funding on the general fund, and then how that's impacting the long-term outcomes of those districts. And so we have several large districts where we have great bond programs, right? Like $500 million bond programs. But then on the operations side, on the general fund funding side, they're close to receivership. So I think the challenge, like from us for program and for those leaders at the district, is like, how do you go forward spending dollars from the bond and building up facilities, spending millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, and then, oh, by the way, like we have to cut certificated and classified jobs, and we're closing these schools because we don't have any money. And so that's a reality that's happening right now in a couple of our districts that we're supporting, and it's helping those facilities leaders be able to differentiate and put the right comms out there. Like, just because we're closing schools doesn't mean that the other facilities don't need, right? We're actually impacting those facilities more by closing the schools. The kids didn't really go away. Like, yes, there's declining enrollment, but not to this amount. In one of our districts, we closed, I think, 6 to 8 schools in the last 2 years. And so then what do you do with the property? How do you take Can you make it a ongoing revenue source for them for the general fund, or is it going to be a facilities revenue if you sell the property? How does that impact state funding? Like, there's so much, and I think, but the community, right? Your constituents are the taxpayers
Mhm.
that live in your community. They don't see it. They see one thing. Your school doesn't know how to manage money. Oh, and by the way, you're spending money over here on building facilities. Why? Give that to the teachers. Why are you closing my local neighborhood school? So it's that challenge I think we're going through right now. And it's just being really clear with the data. I always say clear and kind, right? Like, you're clear, you're kind, transparent, put it out there, and then work through it. And just as leaders and industry leaders, continuing, if you're not saying it, somebody else is. So get your messaging right, and as a consultant, helping your client be able to have those tools to properly message to their community during those kind of rough
Beautiful.
rough times.
Yeah.
When we work with schools at K 12, it's not just about furniture or design, it's about impact. Our radically student centered approach puts students at the center of every decision. From that first conversation to the final walkthrough, we're focused on creating spaces that actually work for the kids, the teachers, and the community. So if you're looking to do more than just check a box on your next project, let's talk. Visit K12.com. That's KAY TWELVE.com and see how we're helping schools transform learning one student at a time. Because at K 12, it's not just about projects and furniture, it's about purpose.
So you spent time thinking about like the long-term school planning and legacy, right? So how do you plan and construct a modern learning environment that won't feel outdated in 20 to 30 years? Because a lot of these districts, like these are once in a lifetime buildings, right? So yeah, how do you kind of put that out there?
It's very challenging. We're working up in it's challenging. You have to be visionary, and I think you have to understand the climate that you're working in. Like you say, if it's one-time dollars, we're working with a small school district up in Yuba County, and they need a middle school, and they've needed it for 15 years, and they can't get a bond passed, and they can't. The kids keep coming. It's actually one of the regions in California that's actually growing, right? And so they are, max capacity. They have, I think, a classroom in their multi-purpose room, right? And then the library kids are like, they're just utilizing every space they can. And so in building out the design of that school, and I've been working with them, this is now my 6th year working with them on this project. And that's how long it takes. I mean, it's not like it's happening overnight. We broke ground, we're building, you can see, we're going up. But it took a long time on the planning stages with that project. And I know this is going to oversimplify it, and I'm sorry to all the architects out there, but sometimes the most traditional, like timeless, it's a box, right? And it has the opportunity to be flexible and amenable. Like, lighting, I think, is super important. Think about the basics, right? Lighting, condition, like the temperature, right? How you face the building. So what's it adjacent to? Can you think longer term? And that's what we had to do in this project up in Yuba County, is we had to phase it out. It has 5 increments. Like, everybody was like, Jen, you're crazy. We're going to do it. So all 4 have been designed. The 5th one is like a future. But we're only building the 1st and 3rd increment right now. So, being thoughtful about that. I think the way you can modernize things, or make it more modern, in a learning environment, is by the furnishing. So the FFE, just putting that in there, can be updated. A refresh on that is a lot less expensive than modernizing a whole classroom. And we're seeing a lot, actually. Like I said, I was down in San Carlos yesterday, and we walked one of the job sites, and it's a building envelope. It's just basic, like HVAC, lighting, windows, doors, paint, carpet,
Right.
like basics. And the frame is still there. And then we're just updating those basic things. And we're seeing that in many districts that we're working with throughout California, just basic mods, building envelope updates. They're seeing with the building envelope update. And remember, facilities is not tied to operations. So by creating efficiency in the way that the facility operates, you're actually having a less of a pull on the resources of the operational fund or LCFF funding. So you're able to reduce that with some energy upgrades, etc. But again, going back to that modern learning, putting in new windows, like I know that sounds basic, but we're just doing better lighting in the window, having windows installed, and that's going to change that environment and modernize it a little bit. So having good bones of a building is really critical. Planning out, hey, is that a growth area? We don't know, right? California is interesting. If you want that quick modern fix, furniture is what we do. And so we're doing that in a lot of schools as well that can't like build a new space, but they want to upgrade and get some new learning environments. And the pedagogy changes too. I think that's really important to remember. I mean, the way my kids are 16 and 13, and the way they're learning now is not the way we learned. And so the environment, like going back to like Dead Poets Society, right? Just like the front facing desks. And I remember like Robert Williams jumping on the desks, like making it a fun environment, like get outside the box, change the way you sit. Furniture can do a lot. So I think being thoughtful about those resources, or even outdoor learning, like why not just go outside, sit on your like grass or in your courtyard, or try to create those types of spaces. And teachers are resilient as well as kids, so they pretty much can make learning fun anywhere. So
Captain, my captain.
Right.
Right. We often use a term radically student-centered on this podcast. And, I think as architects, designers, educators, facilities, it all comes down to we have these jobs because we help learners, right? So what does that term or phrase or approach mean to you, and how would you define radically student-centered?
I always joke when I introduce myself, I'm like, I love facilities and I love money, right? And it's true. I do. I'm a finance major. I do really love money. I love counting it. I love spending it too. And I think my definition is that everything I do is for the kids. I'm very passionate. I love to be thoughtful about what it could be and how that student's going to use it. And every student's different. And I know that's really, it's hard, right? Like every person learns differently. And so everything we do, we have to really think about all means all. It's not just all means half. So in everything I'm doing, and if you've worked with me, you know how passionate I am. It is all student-centered, and I just want to help anybody who's in education. You're not in it to, be a bajillionaire, right? You're in it because you love it. And so I've worked in some other industries outside of K-12 or community colleges. I've worked in hospitals. I've worked in wine. They are lucrative. And when I got the chance to come back to my district, hometown district, I took it. And it's not about the money, right? I need money to survive. I need money to live. But I want to make that difference in every life that I'm able to impact with the facilities that we make. My husband's in construction. Well, he now works for our team, but prior to joining Van Pelt, he was in construction. And I used to always say like, oh, I built that. Oh, see that building? I built that. Oh, that stadium, I built that. He's like, you didn't build that. He's all, you don't build anything. And I'm like, I'm all, seriously? I'm like, I helped set the project up, get the funding right. I worked with the team. I paid the contractors and the architects, right? So I feel like I built it. And I think if everybody in their role, whether you're an intern, project engineer, a custodian, superintendent of schools, board member, whatever you are, if you have the chance to get on a project and just, do one piece of the project, you'll see the impact. And really important is to go on ribbon cutting day or the first day of school after you complete a project and the kids come on it. And that's how you'll know what you did is making a difference. They're so excited. I mean, with these building envelopes, it's like, oh, it's just windows and paint and a new door, right? Oh no, the kids notice. They notice, they feel it. They believe that you did that for them. They're like this, they're proud of it. And if you're proud of where you go to school and the environment, and what you learn, it just helps you grow even more. And so it's all connected. Like, I just think it's important to remember that every little bit is making an impact, and don't underestimate what you can do, even with a simple picking up a piece of garbage when you walk on a school site. I used to tell my kids when they were at their school and they'd see some trash on the ground, I'd say, well, pick that up. And they'd be like, I don't want to pick it up. I'd be like, you own a part of this. You're a taxpayer here. Like, this is your school. Like, be proud of it. You don't throw trash on the ground at our house, do you? And so helping people realize, like, just picking up that piece of trash, you're making a difference, right? So I think, to me, radically student-centered is remembering that every moment you have a chance to make an influence. So don't think that little touch doesn't make a difference.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for that reflection, the insight, the information. This has been an amazing conversation. I can't even tell you how much you brought. So, my friends out there, anywhere you listen, share this with a friend. Jennifer Gibb, Van Pelt, Vice President of BizDev. You're amazing. Thank you for the work you do, the contributions, and who you are. This has been a great conversation, and thank you very much for being our guest.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
The Better Learning Podcast is produced by Matt Rogers and edited by Kelly Jones. The views and opinions shared on this podcast are those of the individual speaking and do not necessarily represent the perspectives of their affiliated companies, organizations, or associations.